So you found this video about mysterious ancient humans, and well, it got you thinking.
They really know how to grab your attention, don't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, who hasn't wondered about, like, maybe meeting a Neanderthal or something? But we're here to separate the facts from, all the wild speculation.
Right, because sometimes the truth about our ancient relatives is even more interesting than what you see in those documentaries.
Totally. So let's dive into it. This video kicks off with the Boscop Man. Remember that one? That skull they found in South Africa? The one with the massive
Massive cranium. Yeah, I remember that one.
it said something like 1830 to 2030 cubic centimeters. That's way bigger than ours. Like, what is it, 13 something?
1,570 cubic centimeters on average for
Yeah.
modern humans. So yeah, that's a pretty significant difference. But it's not as simple as saying bigger brain equals smarter.
Right, like you were saying earlier.
It's more about how the brain is organized, the structure, the connections. It's like comparing computers. A bigger hard drive doesn't automatically make it faster, you know?
Yeah, totally. But still, that huge brain capacity's got to mean something, right?
It definitely raises some fascinating questions. One thing to consider is the energy required to power a larger brain. It's what's known as the expensive tissue hypothesis.
Expensive, too.
It basically means that larger brains require more energy to function. So for Boscop Man to support those big brains, they would have needed a very nutrient-rich diet, which could tell us a lot about their environment, their lifestyle, maybe even their social structures.
Okay, so maybe they were like super intelligent hunters or something?
It's possible, but we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions. We just don't have enough fossil evidence to say for sure how those big brains translated into their daily lives.
Okay, so maybe not Einstein-level geniuses then.
Maybe, maybe not. We just don't know enough to say. But that's part of what makes studying ancient humans so fascinating.
All right, well, moving on from giant brains, let's talk about something even weirder. Those Paracas skulls from Peru. You know those ones? The ones that look like elongated.
Ah, yes. The elongated skulls. I can see why those capture people's imaginations.
Right, because aliens. At least that's what the video said.
Well, the shapes are unusual, I'll grant you that.
And they did that whole DNA analysis thing, remember? Like the maternal DNA traced back to Mesopotamia, which is already pretty wild if you ask me.
It suggests some interesting connections, for sure.
But then it gets even stranger. They said the paternal DNA, they couldn't match it to anything. And that's when the video throws out the whole Anunnaki connection, which, come on.
It's important to remember that DNA analysis, especially with ancient samples, is prone to contamination. What might seem like an unusual result could just be from mixing with modern-day DNA. We have to be really cautious with interpretations.
Okay, so maybe not aliens. But what about the shape of the skulls then? You can't deny those are, like, weirdly long.
They're right, they are striking. But before we jump to extraterrestrial conclusions, we have to consider that the Paracas people practiced artificial cranial deformation.
They what?
They shaped the skulls of their infants intentionally. It was a common practice in their culture.
So instead of a sign of alien ancestry, it's more like, I don't know, a fashion statement.
In a way, yes. It likely signified cultural affiliations or social status within their society.
Wow. Talk about beauty standards, huh? But okay, what about that Mesopotamian DNA connection? That part's still weird, right?
It is interesting. It could indicate migration patterns, trade routes, things like that. We'd need more data to say for sure.
Okay, so we've got giant brains, we've got DIY skull shaping.
What will they think of next?
Right, speaking of which, remember that jawbone, the Pughu one they found off the coast of Taiwan?
Oh, yeah, that one's a real puzzle.
Because they can't figure out how big this Penghu man really was. I mean, some people are saying giant, right?
Well, it's not like we have a whole skeleton, right? All they found is that one jawbone.
I guess so.
And yeah, the teeth were pretty huge. Some researchers think it was Homo erectus, but
Weren't those the ones they think were wandering around Asia?
yeah, around that time period. But others are saying, hold on, this could be a whole new species.
So which is it? A new species or?
We need more bones. But that's not the only cool thing about this find. You see where they found this jawbone?
In the ocean, right? Off the coast.
The Pescadores Channel. It's underwater now, but back then, probably dry land.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me they were sailing, like way back then?
Well, not sailing necessarily, but walking, migrating. During the last ice age, that area was above water.
So they were trekking across what's now like open ocean.
The evidence suggests that they were, yeah, potentially even traveling between islands.
That's incredible. I mean, the guts on these guys. Okay, so now we've got ancient mariners on top of everything else.
It's amazing what we're learning about these early humans, isn't it?
Seriously. It makes you wonder what they were really capable of. But hold on, there's one more group we have to talk about. The Neanderthals.
Ah, yes. The Neanderthals, often misunderstood, I think.
Yeah, they always get portrayed as, kind of dumb and brutish. But this video makes them sound a lot more, well,
Sophisticated.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we share DNA with them, which is, like, mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is pretty amazing, isn't it? It suggests that our ancestors, well, they weren't exactly strangers.
So what else makes them so special? Besides, being our distant relatives.
Well, for one thing, their brains were actually larger than ours, on average.
Bigger than ours. But I thought we were, like, at the top of the brain food chain.
Not necessarily. Remember what we were saying about Boscop Man? Size isn't everything. It's about organization, structure.
Okay, yeah. But still, big brains. Neanderthals. What were they doing with all that brain power?
Well, there's a lot of debate about that, of course. But we are seeing more and more evidence of complex behavior. Take burials, for example.
Burials, like they buried their dead.
Intentionally, yes. And not just that. Sometimes they were buried with objects, tools, things like that.
Whoa, hold on. You think they had some idea of an afterlife, then?
It's impossible to say for sure, but it suggests some level of ritualistic behavior, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. But what about art? Didn't they find cave paintings, Neanderthal cave paintings?
You're right. In recent years, there have been some remarkable discoveries. Cave paintings dating back over 65,000 years, much older than anything we'd seen before.
And they were sure these were Neanderthals, not, our ancestors.
The dating seems fairly solid, and the techniques used, the pigments, it all points to Neanderthals.
Wow. So we're talking about artists, basically.
It seems like it, yeah. And not just random scribbles either. Some of these paintings show a real understanding of form and perspective.
Okay, color me impressed. So they had rituals, they had art, did they have music too? So Neanderthals, they were more than just cavemen, huh? But if they were so smart, so artistic, why aren't they still around? What happened?
That's a question that has puzzled scientists for a long time.
Because the video mentioned a few possibilities, like,
Competition.
yeah, competition with Homo sapiens. And climate change, maybe even diseases,
It
right?
was probably a combination of factors. Imagine the challenges they faced.
Mm-hmm.
A change in climate would have meant changes in their food sources, their hunting grounds.
And then you've got, like, another human species moving in on your territory.
Exactly. Competing for those same resources, it must have been incredibly difficult.
So are we the bad guys in this story?
Yeah.
Did we basically outcompete the Neanderthals?
It's not that simple. It wasn't a case of one group being better than the other. It's more likely that Neanderthals were just better adapted to a different set of conditions that were changing rapidly.
Okay, so it was like a perfect storm.
Hmm.
But there's one more mind-blowing thing, right?
You mean the fact that they live on, in a way?
In our genes, that's right. What's the deal with that?
Well, genetic studies have shown that modern humans, those of us with European or Asian ancestry, we carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA.
You're kidding. How much are we talking about?
About 2% on average.
2% Neanderthal. So does that mean, like, I don't know, do I have a Neanderthal ancestor somewhere down the line?
It's possible. It suggests that our ancestors, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, they weren't completely isolated from each other.
They were interbreeding. So does that Neanderthal DNA actually do anything? Does it affect us today?
That's what scientists are trying to figure out. Some studies suggest that certain Neanderthal genes might influence things like our immune systems, even our hair and skin pigmentation.
No way. So my hair color, that could be from a Neanderthal.
It's possible. We're still in the very early stages of understanding all of this, but it's fascinating, isn't it?
It really makes you realize that human evolution, it wasn't a straight line.
More like a tangled web full of dead ends and unexpected connections.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what other secrets are still out there, just waiting to be uncovered. Well, that was an incredible deep dive.
It really makes you appreciate the ingenuity and resilience of these ancient humans.
It does. And who knows, maybe one day we'll find out what really happened to them. Thanks for listening, everyone. And if you could meet one of these ancient humans, let us know who you'd choose and why. Until next time.